Somewhere in the last decade, boredom became the enemy. Productivity culture declared it a waste of time to be eliminated through discipline, optimization, and the intelligent use of every available minute. Technology redesigned itself to ensure that the uncomfortable experience of having nothing to stimulate you would never have to last more than a few seconds. And billions of people accepted this bargain enthusiastically, without pausing to read the fine print carefully. Every commute is now a podcast. Every waiting room is a scroll session. Every spare moment is filled, organized, and monetized by someone else's content. This transformation has been marketed as progress, as efficiency, as finally making the most of the time that was previously being wasted. What nobody mentioned in all of that marketing is that in eliminating your ability to tolerate boredom, the world may have quietly stripped away one of the most powerful cognitive tools you were ever given. The most creative, the most strategically capable, the most genuinely productive people in virtually every field and discipline are not the ones who have successfully eliminated boredom from their lives. They are the ones who protect it. They schedule deliberate quiet. They defend empty time from interruption and from the gravitational pull of devices and content. They treat unstructured mental space not as a failure of productivity, but as a prerequisite for the kind of thinking that cannot happen any other way. Boredom is not the absence of thinking. It is the condition under which your most sophisticated and most creative neural networks become active. And the research on what those networks actually produce during idle periods is both surprising and practically important for anyone who wants to understand why the people operating at the highest levels consistently protect their quiet time. Neuroscientists studying the resting brain have identified a network of regions called the default mode network, which activates specifically when you are not engaged in any externally directed task. During stimulation, during focused work, during entertainment and content consumption, this network is actively suppressed and pushed into the background. But the moment you stop directing your attention outward toward an external input, it fires up and begins doing something that directed, conscious thought cannot replicate. It makes unexpected connections between ideas that were never consciously linked. It runs simulations about the future. It replays and reinterprets experiences from the past. It synthesizes information gathered from completely disparate sources into coherent patterns of understanding. The insights that people describe arriving during a shower, on a long walk, or while staring out a window are not fortunate accidents. They are the measurable output of a neural network that can only do its most valuable work when you step back and give it the uninterrupted quiet it requires to operate. Constant stimulation does not produce sharper thinking. It produces shallower thinking, a state of perpetual processing that never reaches the depth where synthesis and insight actually occur. The mind that is always consuming is a mind that is never integrating. Raw information without extended reflection is, in the most literal neurological sense, noise. It occupies processing resources without producing the kind of structured understanding that comes from allowing the brain to work on material over time without constant new input competing for the same resources. Studies examining learning and comprehension consistently demonstrate that rest periods between intensive information sessions dramatically improve both retention and depth of understanding. The students who take genuine breaks between study sessions consistently outperform the students who study continuously for the same total amount of time. The professionals who protect reflection periods outperform those who remain in constant reactive mode. Look carefully at the daily and weekly routines of people who have consistently performed at the highest levels of demanding fields, and one pattern appears so reliably that it deserves to be treated as a serious data point rather than an interesting anecdote. They protect significant blocks of time that would look, from the outside, completely unproductive. Long walks with no audio, extended periods of sitting without an agenda or a screen, morning hours that are deliberately kept empty of communication and consumption, time in physical environments, often outdoors, that are intentionally chosen for their absence of stimulating input. These practices are not breaks from serious work. They are, by the accounts of the people who maintain them, central to the serious work. The quality of what gets produced in the focused hours is directly determined by the quality of the space created in the quiet hours surrounding them. Boredom is also where problem-solving happens at its deepest and most original level. When you are in active, focused concentration on a specific problem, you are primarily engaging your analytical processing capacity, the part of your thinking that works sequentially, logically, and within the explicit constraints you have defined. That mode of processing is genuinely powerful, but it is also genuinely limited by the boundaries of the framework you have consciously established. The moment you step back, release the direct focus, and allow the problem to rest while you engage in something idle or minimally demanding, you give a different and much more expansive processing system access to the same material. This associative processing does not work linearly. It draws on everything you have ever read, experienced, or felt, and finds connections between your current problem and completely unrelated domains of knowledge that your analytical mind could never have access to while remaining inside the deliberate frame. The attention economy has a very specific and commercially important reason for systematically training you to fear and avoid boredom. A person who reaches for stimulation at the first sign of a quiet moment, before the discomfort of stillness has even become fully conscious, is a highly predictable and highly engaged user. Highly engaged users generate advertising impressions, behavioral data, and platform revenue. Every major social platform and content service has been designed by sophisticated teams of behavioral engineers whose specific professional goal was to make the quiet moment feel intolerable, to ensure that the reflex to reach for the phone fires before the person ever consciously decides to. The result is a population that has been trained into a state of attention that is continuously fractured and continuously stimulated, and that has largely lost access to the deeper and more valuable modes of thinking that genuine quiet makes possible. The ability to be comfortable in silence and in genuine unstructured time is not merely a productivity advantage, though it is a significant one. It is a psychological one, with implications that extend into almost every domain of a person's life. A person who can sit with their own thoughts without needing to escape into external stimulation is a person who has developed a functional and trusting relationship with their inner life. They know, with greater clarity than is available through any other means, what they actually think about the important questions, what they genuinely value, what they feel beneath the noise of daily life, and what they authentically want. That self-knowledge is the foundation of every good decision, every meaningful relationship, and every form of success that is genuinely your own rather than borrowed from someone else's template. The research on creativity specifically documents a phenomenon called the incubation effect, which provides a precise mechanism for understanding why deliberate disengagement from a difficult problem so reliably produces the breakthroughs that sustained concentrated effort cannot. After an initial intensive period of working on a challenging problem, the default mode network continues to process the problem after active attention has been withdrawn, approaching it from angles and through associations that conscious analytical effort cannot. The historical examples are numerous and consistent, important scientific and creative insights arriving not during concentrated work sessions, but during walks, during rest, during the kind of idle mental wandering that today would be interrupted immediately by a notification. These are not stories about luck. They are documented patterns of the incubation effect doing exactly what the research predicts it should do. The specific character of the idle period matters significantly, and this distinction is worth understanding clearly. What produces the documented cognitive benefits is not passive entertainment or low-demand content consumption, both of which keep the default mode network suppressed through continuous low-level engagement. What produces the benefits is genuine mental quiet, time in which there is no external input making demands on attention at all. Walking without audio content, sitting without a screen in sight, engaging in simple physical tasks that are familiar enough to require no cognitive attention. These are the conditions that allow the default mode network to operate fully. Substituting one form of stimulation for another, replacing social media with podcasts, or replacing television with audiobooks, is not the same as genuine quiet. The brain requires something genuinely close to emptiness to shift into the mode where its most distinctive and most valuable processing occurs. The economic implications of this are significant and are moving in a direction that makes the practice increasingly valuable rather than less relevant over time. As the attention economy becomes more sophisticated and more successful at capturing the idle moments of a larger proportion of the population, the person who has maintained or recovered the ability to tolerate genuine quiet becomes increasingly rare and increasingly capable relative to their environment. The deep work, original synthesis, and incubation-based insight do not diminish as the surrounding environment becomes more stimulating. They increase because the contrast between the thinking available to people who protect their quiet and the thinking available to people who do not becomes wider with every improvement in the technology of distraction. The ancient practitioners of sustained contemplation understood something through direct experience that neuroscience has now confirmed with considerable technical precision. The Stoic philosophers built their entire practice around the cultivation of extended, uninterrupted reflection. Marcus Aurelius composed his most enduring work not for public consumption, but as a private exercise in unhurried thinking, conducted over years. Pascal observed that all of humanity's problems stem from the inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Whether or not you find that observation overstated, the underlying insight that the capacity for genuine stillness is both rare and enormously consequential is one that the available evidence supports with increasing confidence. The experiment worth conducting is genuinely simple, and the only real obstacle to beginning it is the discomfort of the first few attempts. Choose one period tomorrow of at least 15 minutes and protect it completely from all forms of input. No phone, no audio, no screen, no reading material. Sit or walk slowly with whatever thoughts arise without directing them toward anything specific. The initial experience will almost certainly feel uncomfortable because you are asking a mind that has been trained into continuous stimulation to do something it has lost practice with. That discomfort is not evidence that you are doing it wrong. It is evidence of how thoroughly the training has taken hold. Move through it consistently, and the returns that become available on the other side of that discomfort are disproportionate to the investment the practice requires. Subscribe to Awake Within and leave a comment telling me the last time you deliberately gave yourself nothing to do and what arrived during that time. A note: this video was produced using artificial intelligence for both the narration and the visuals.